Today's a different kind of video. Instead of a day in the life, following me around, seeing what I'm up to, I thought I'd talk to you. Talk to you about success, motivation, things like that. One thing I hear a lot, and I saw it on Reddit just recently, people say, when I was a kid, I had this idea that adults knew what they were doing, and they don't. They just walk around empty-headed, just as confused as I am. Bullshit. I hate that. I dislike that. I feel like it is one little symptom of a huge, excuse-driven philosophy that is the antithesis of how I think people should operate and how I try to operate myself. This notion that adults don't know what they're doing, that they have no plan, that they're just empty, bubble-headedly working their way through life, that's not adults, that's losers. And by the way, when I talk about winner or loser, those are fluid terms. You can change from one team to the other. You could not necessarily be on either one of them. There's an in-between. But if you show me a guy who has no plan, who's not driving towards making something happen for himself, I bet that guy's on the L team. Just saying. That's not where you want to be. That's not where you should be. College, let's talk about that. I feel like sometimes adults say, if you don't go to college, you're not going to meet your goals. You're going to be on the L team. I want a better way to say that, but you're going to be a loser if you don't go to college. It's not true. It's not true. What is true is that without college, you can't have certain jobs. You'll never be a doctor. You'll never be an engineer. You'll never work for NASA if you don't go to college. You'll never be a dentist. You'll never be a teacher. You'll never be a lot of things if you don't go for further education. But you can be other stuff. You can be rich. That's not off the table at all. There's tons of money to be made in real estate and in construction, all kinds of construction, by the way, plumbing, electricity, HVAC, etc. There's money to be made in retail. There's money to be made all over the place. I've talked about this guy. I know he didn't go to college, but he became a phone book, 100 millionaire, right? I met a guy on a cruise who owned a bunch of real estate. He just worked, he fixed it, he made it bigger, sold it, flipped it for a while, and then he started owning shopping malls, and he'd say things that seemed simple to him, but impossible to achieve for most people with a different mindset, like, what you really want is to get a lot of passive income. You should be owning shopping malls and real estate and own things that kick off income. Yeah, passive income is great, right? When your money earns money, when your investments earn investments, you have to work to get there. To work to get there, you have to have some idea of where you're going. And that's why I dislike the whole, no one has a plan. Everyone's just fumbling their way through. That's not true. That's not true. There are people who are definitely like, man, I make 25 grand every time I flip a house. I have to do this 6 more times. Then I can own something. Then that something can kick off income that will feed the next one I grow. And then I'll have 2 that are kicking off income. There are people who have a plan. And you should have a plan, whatever that is. It can be school. It can be anything. It can be anything. But just drive towards it. Talk about people for a minute. So every generation sort of passes judgment on the new generation that enters the workforce, right? I'm Generation X. I'm 43 years old, and I'm pretty sure that's right. What they said about us is that we were slackers. And for me personally, that probably wasn't too far off the mark. I was pretty much a slacker as a teenager. Not so much as I entered the workforce, but as a teenager, that was accurate. Generation Y, the next group in there, they were arrogant. That was the knock on them. They're arrogant. They enter the workforce and they know computers sometimes better than the boss, and perhaps misinterpreted that to think that they were smarter in general. And I remember them being very upset, Generation Y, saying, why don't these other generations retire already so that I can have their good jobs? That was the knock on Generation Y. The current generation entering the workforce, my knock on them is this victim thing, this idea that they're not in control or that things aren't their fault. And ironically, I actually believe it's not entirely their fault. There's 2 aspects I feel like that drive it. One, they're being told that. People pander to them and say, you know what, life's not fair. Man, that's such a shame. They say, like, yeah, look at this other person. If this was baseball, we're all trying to score runs, right? That guy's born on third base. Of course you didn't score a run. It wasn't fair. Screw fair. Screw fair. I don't care about fair. I care about possible. I care about possible. I only care about if it is possible. It doesn't matter how hard it is. It doesn't matter if it's harder for you than him or harder for her than him or whatever. It doesn't matter. None of this. What matters is possible. You work with the world that you live in and you drive towards what you're trying to get. That's how this goes. Dude, screw all that noise. That's one of the reasons. Back to the Generation Z thing, that it's not my fault. People are telling you that because it makes them popular. If someone says, hey, it's not your fault you have all that debt. Those things you bought should have been cheaper or paid for. I'm specifically thinking of education in this. No, you signed up for it. These were decisions that you made. You own everything about you. And that is not bad news. That's great news. There's no one that you'd rather have owning your future and your past than you. There's no one else who's going to be nearly as interested in what you become and who you've been than you are. You own it. It's not something that the world inflicted upon you. The game is rigged. Screw that. Screw that. Who cares if the game is rigged? You can still win. You can do this. When someone tells you the game is rigged and you buy it, that becomes an excuse to not play. That becomes an excuse to not become a player. And that sucks. Vince Lombardi has this quote. He says, the difference between the successful people and the others is not a lack of strength. It's not a lack of knowledge. It's a lack of will. I love that. I love that. The beauty of the will argument is that you own your own success and failure. And I get it. The world is variable. It's confusing. It's not a simple do this and you'll achieve success because random chances happen. But if you do the right things and you keep setting yourself up for success, you will hit it. You will. And that's what I love about this philosophy. That's what I love about what Vince Lombardi has to say. It's will. It's on you. You own your success. You own your failure. Don't buy into the victim thing. And the other, I will say, part of the reason I say victim's not their fault is that there are people who buy it. There are people who achieve who can get what they want by crying victim. But that's not how you'll get everything you want. If you're trying to achieve some real success, crying victim doesn't get you there. At best, it gets you off the floor, but it doesn't get you to the top. Crying victim is crap. Crying victim is for losers. Winners achieve in spite of whatever victim status they may or may not have. You own it, you drive towards it, you push past it. I had a friend tell me, not everybody wakes up, looks at their to-do list and says, oh man, I hope it's long. I hope it's a giant list. I hope I've got a ton of stuff I need to get done today. And it made me feel good that he thought I was wired that way because I'm not exactly. I do feel good when I get stuff done. I feel happy about that. And sometimes happy, like genuinely like, yeah, I'm proud of me. Sometimes just relief, which is a different thing, right? Sometimes it's just like, yeah, I'm so glad that thing that was weighing on my shoulders is now not weighing on my shoulders. That sense of relief is almost as joyous as, the happy that I have a thing done. They're one and the same sometimes. I take an interest in hobbies that aren't quick rewards. And my wife finds it funny, She'll be like, yeah, you had fun today. You wired the stable. You had fun today. You did this or that. And it's like, baby, that wasn't fun. That was a means to something that I'm going to be proud of. That was part of the work that I put into to make something great. Paramotoring is a neat example. Thus far, not that I haven't had my fun moments, but I would describe it more as work. Running up and down the hills, learning to kite. I'm out there in the heat. I've had days where pretty much fell over from exhaustion, kiting in my yard, just trying to get better at it. That's the work I put in for the fun I see on my way. You know, when I can actually just jump into the sky and take off and like enjoy that privileged perspective, that's the payoff. And there are a lot of things in life that have a long lead up to the payoff. School is a great example. I went to school, I don't want to lie, it was either 12 or 13 years. I'm afraid someone's going to catch me on this inconsistency of saying 12 one time and 13 another, but over a decade I went to school, most of it night school. If you guys don't know me, 2 bachelor's degrees, 1 master's in engineering. Took a long time, and the payoff was great. You know, I could not have run my Minecraft server like I did if it wasn't for my educational background. You know, my Minecraft server was very successful, and it was very good. And those things are because I knew what I was doing. You know, that's the scoop behind it. And you know, even I could evaluate my staff in a way that someone without my educational background couldn't have. You know, so I'm not saying I did it all, I didn't, but I understood it all. I was on top of it all. And that comes with my educational background. I feel like I'm bragging, but it was a super long thing, and it set up a good career in the corporate sector. It set up a good career as an entrepreneur. That's what school is. If you want to go without school, you might have to serve an apprenticeship of some sort. You know, here in America, you can't just get an electrician's license. You need to work as an apprentice electrician for some amount of time before they even let you take the test. You put your time in, and then you can work forward. There's a lot of plans. You know, I feel like sometimes people come to me and they're like, all right, Woody, I'm ready to do stuff, but I don't have a plan, you know? Just try something, see if it fits, give it a go, look for an opportunity that will set you up to, like, for your boss's job, right? You know, if you're an apprentice electrician, take that job only if you'd like to own your electrical company someday, or with any of the trades. If you're working in retail, try to get yourself set up, you know, as a manager at that place, and then eventually you could own your own. There are a lot of opportunities in this world for someone who is a go-getter. And that's always been true, and it always will be true. Just go get some. That'll be great. And you won't regret it. Tony Robbins has this great quote. He says, people overestimate what they can do in 1 year, and they underestimate what they can do in 10 years. It's beautiful. I love it. And I don't mean to do this broad sweeping generalization about how bad all people are. I feel like people are good, but they might not know. They might not know that this is a 10-year process, you know? You want to be gorgeous? It's not a 1-year thing. I have a Facebook friend. She's my friend's wife, and she was always heavy. She was really heavy. And she showed this picture of herself before and after over the course of 4 years. And it's like, whoa, you've transformed. Congratulations. Becky, if you see this somehow, good for you. It was a 4-year journey for her. There are lots of journeys that take more than a year, but there's nowhere you can't go in 10 years. If you put your mind to it, 10 years from now, you could be an airline pilot. If you put your mind to it, 10 years from now, you could be almost anything. So do that thing. You know the kinds of things that it takes to succeed, right? Like education can be part of it. Saving, right? You know, spending less than you're earning, that can be part of it. Working hard towards something that leads towards something else. That's how this is done. So do those things. In terms of action, right? Where do you start? What do I do next? All right, Woody, I get it. It's not going to be 1 year. Okay, Woody, I get it. I own my own future, but what the heck exactly do I do? This is the point where you look and figure out what you're trying to avoid, you know? Okay, I was talking to a young guy recently, and I was like, if you don't know what you want to do, if no job appeals to you, first step, choose your work environment. What does that look like? You know, does a small office environment like Dunder Mifflin look kind of fun to you? Like you would have a buddy there and you two would eat lunch together all the time and that would be your life? If so, you know, that's the office job. Does a giant corporate environment appeal to you? How about an outdoor job? If you hear outdoor job and think, oh my God, I hate rain, I hate sun, and I hate hot weather, no chance, then that gig's not for you. If you hear indoor job and think I could never live in such a straitjacket, then start by choosing your work environment and then figure out which jobs work there. I used to, I was a teenager on the beach and there was a guy, he had a hard hat on, but he had a tie and a clipboard, which to me implied some sort of level of authority. And what he was doing is he was supervising a beach reconstruction project. If you don't know anything about beach reconstruction, there's basically a big barge out to sea with a motor on it, and it pumps sandy water on the beach. The water drains off, the sand kind of sticks, and you do that enough, and suddenly your beach, which had eroded away, gets nice and long again, and people can get their skin cancer. So I watched this guy, and he was like checking to see how the sand had raised, where it was going, and making sure that everything was okay. And then he jumped in a Zodiac, which is like a small inflatable boat with an engine on it, and they took him out to the barge. And I thought, man, I want to be that guy. Now at the time, I was a slacker teenager, and being an engineer seemed too ambitious for a loser like me. But that's what he was. He was a civil engineer, and he was checking on beach reconstruction, or maybe an environmental engineer, who the heck knows. And that work environment appealed to me. If you want to get started and you have no direction, start with work environment and see if you like it. And then think about the jobs that exist in that work environment. So I think I'm going to cut this here. Leave a comment. Let me know what you thought of the video and what other subjects you might like me to touch on. I'd like that. Oh, and leave a like and subscribe and do that stuff that YouTubers love. Thank you.
Multi-million-dollar deals, got $1 million deal. When I was younger, I would wonder how $1 million feel. And for real, it feel like I ain't even broke a seal. Cause when you drop hits, they want you to pick up the bill. Now my life is in Maryland, my heart is in Chicago. New York state of mind, but out LA, man, that's where I go. When I need to lay this shit down, so much on my mind, that's the reason I'm spitting now. Finally running the game and everybody tripping now, but I could give it